Good deal. All right, we will give everybody just another quick minute to be let in from the waiting room before we get started. I think we're rolling in. Okay, good. All right, I think we can actually kind of get started with introductions, and then lay out sort of the format for today. And as people get in, Haley will continue to let people in as well. And just a note too, we're recording this meeting because we'll be able to use it for informational purposes later on. So if you don't want to be on camera, that's totally fine. You can sort of keep your camera off. Happily, you can add questions into chat. We'll be monitoring if that's easier for you when we get to the Q&A part, or just if they come up while we're talking about different things, feel free to put it there as a parking lot, or someone can check in along the way too. But to get started, I just want to make sure that I can say welcome. You are in the Finding My People, an introduction to the Oral History Association Caucuses. We're really glad to have you here today. We're going to spend some time talking about what the Oral History Association Caucus program is and how you might get involved, or how you might decide you want to get with a group of people and petition for a new one. I'm Sarah Milligan. I'm the current president of the Oral History Association and the department head for the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program, which is at the Oklahoma State University Library. We have invited the chairs and co-chairs from the current OHA caucuses to share about their communities and who and why someone might choose to be involved. I'm going to give quick introductions and then a short overview of what the caucus systems are. And then I'm going to pass this on to the chair and co-chairs to share a little bit with you. And then we will have time for some Q&A, and then wrap up a little bit with more information about how you might petition to form your own caucus. To get started, I want to introduce Aubrey Carrier. She's the chair of the Archives Caucus and also the archivist at the Wells Fargo Corporate Archives. Lisa Brooks is the co-chair of the Indigenous Caucus and adjunct professor at Montclair State University. And also joining Lisa is Benji La Piedra, who is also the co-chair of the Indigenous Caucus and the biographer in progress of Jim Shenton and Herb Denton. And you can correct me if there's something to add to that, Benji, but that's what, okay. And then Troy Reeves, who is the co-chair of the Campus Caucus and also the distinguished oral historian at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I'm really glad that all of our chairs were able to join us from the different caucus. So to provide just like a brief overview of what the OHA caucus system is, the caucuses are groups that are fairly new development to the Oral History Association. So over the years, we've had interest groups of different kinds. We've had, just sort of meetings on the, topical meetup groups at the annual meeting at different times. And it's kind of become apparent over the last couple of years that we needed something a little bit more formal and structured, just so people could know a little bit more in transparency and, flow of information on how to keep people together who had these common interests in different communities. So a few years ago, the OHA leadership worked to formalize and make more transparent those different interest groups through the creation of the caucus system. So these are formally recognized groups within the membership, which is defined by shared identity, interest, or other articulated criteria. And so the goal in it is to foster community while creating mutually beneficial relationships within the association. And they don't have any formal responsibilities to the OHA. Leadership welcomes their voice and advocacy and contributions where they feel appropriate. But there isn't like a requirement. It's not like a committee where there's like a task or an assignment or a goal. It's literally just how you all want to find your own community and nurture that. So you meet whatever structure and schedule as the co-chairs and the caucus members determine works best. And there's no real requirements besides just an annual check-in with council to verify that there's still active membership within that caucus and there's still a leadership structure to kind of keep everyone moving. So again, feel free to add questions in the chat along the way, and we will have time for more Q&A at the end. So I think, Aubrey, I'm going to pass to you first for an overview of the Archives Caucus.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And I will add, I unfortunately do not have access to the chat today. So if any questions come up, please do feel free to raise your hand, or if one of the moderators, Sarah, can call it out to me. Thank you so much. But good morning, afternoon, evening, and thanks so much for your time today. As Sarah said, my name is Aubrey Carrier, and I'm proud to be representing the Archives Caucus at OHA. And our space is here to provide support and community for anyone whose work or interests crosses that bridge between oral history and archives work. So for a little background, the group first met as the Archives Interest Group at the OHA 2013 annual meeting in Cleveland, Ohio. And I first wandered in the year after that in the Madison, Wisconsin meeting, where the group had an in-person meetup. And it's been really exciting and gratifying to watch the group get more connected and more active over the years as more people get involved. So who are our members? Really, anyone with a relevant interest and curiosity is welcome at any stage of your career or education. And we are working on a more in-depth census this year of who actually is in the group, but most of us wear multiple hats. Maybe we always planned to do oral history work, or maybe we fell into it unexpectedly and we are looking for support and community. Like, for example, I'm primarily an archivist. I primarily work with collections, but one day I found myself holding out a microphone to a retired leader. And now I lead an in-house oral history initiative on the side as the best part of my job, of course. So what does the caucus actually do, and what can it do for you? Well, as a baseline, we have an email distribution list for ongoing discussion and connection. It's low traffic, but it's there for you to ask questions, share projects and accomplishments, or just see what others are thinking about. Because chances are, if you are having a challenge or a question, there are others out there who are dealing with the same thing, have been through it, might have some ideas for you, might have some solutions to share. We hold a regular bi-monthly virtual meeting where we dedicate time for in-depth discussion on a topic of interest to the group, followed by general sharing and announcements connection. And we frequently record our meetings so that those who couldn't attend can still benefit from the discussion. So those are available to our members. Now, some of our recent meeting topics have focused on artificial intelligence, accessioning oral histories, accessibility, privacy, working with volunteers, and not just on the theoretical level. People are sharing real-world experiences and best practices that are coming up for them and how they are dealing with these issues in their day-to-day work. So it's really helpful, practical resource for people doing this type of work. We also help people get more involved with the broader OHA community. So one way we do this is by helping members connect and brainstorm to propose sessions for the OHA annual meetings. Last year, our group inspired and supported 2 sessions that were accepted for the annual meeting in Atlanta last October, and they were standing room only attended, which shows the relevance of the work and our value to the profession. And of course, we love real-world connection as well when we have the opportunity. Traditionally, we meet in person at the annual meeting, which I have requested space for the one in Portland, so we expect that to continue this October. So there's a lot of talent and knowledge in the group, and we are exploring other ways that we can support the OHA community. So how can you get involved if these topics are of interest to you? So a good first step is to join our distribution list, which you can do at any time. And again, I unfortunately don't have access to the chat, but you just send an email to our group, OHAAIG +subscribe at googlegroups.com. And there's no formal application, but please do tell me a little bit about yourself so I know you are a human. But you're welcome to drop in on one of our bi-monthly virtual meetings. The next one is July 17th, and it'll be a low pressure environment to see what we have to offer and connect with professionals who are actively doing the work. So if you are interested to learn more, this is a space and a resource for you, and please come check us out. I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up, or otherwise back to you, Sarah.
All right, thank you for that. I am adding that information into the chat about your Google group and just how to learn more about the Archives Caucus. And now I'm going to pass to Lisa and Benji.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go first, and then Lisa will follow up behind me. So, hi, my name is Benji. I'm here in my hometown of Washington, D.C. Um, the Indigenous Caucus is about 5 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I think it had its first meeting, maybe 4 years old. I think it was at the OHA in Los Angeles. I was not a part of that meeting, and it's funny because at the last meeting in Atlanta, I was referred to as a founding member, but I'm like, if anything, I'm like a 1B member because I was not one of the 5 people that originally formed the caucus. I was brought in at a still a pretty early stage, like mid 22, or I guess 23. In any case, so yeah, the caucus has existed for a few years. At this point, to be perfectly honest, and this might be like good grist for the mill, like we're in a pretty pronounced state of flux in terms of like our leadership of the caucus. We are facing some challenges that I think might be illustrative of like the relatively not formalized way that caucuses get to exist within the organization. Um, so I just made a quick list. Like we, by my count, provide 4 different kinds of services or functions at any given time. So one, and I think most importantly, I was reminded recently by an actual founding member that this is like in the mission statement of the caucus. We provide essentially like an affinity space or a safe space for oral historians who identify as Indigenous, who want to have their own, again, safe space within which to discuss it amongst each other. Whatever comes up, challenges within the organization, whatever. I think we all know what a safe space would entail. Somewhat related to that, but in a way that, again, creates certain organizational wrinkles, is that we also provide a sort of pathway into the OHA for Indigenous oral historians or Indigenous people interested in oral history who are not already part of the OHA. So we have one member in particular who is very involved in OHA and very involved in Indigenous studies and very involved with Indigenous communities. And she is constantly bringing people to our meetings, which is great. And so like every meeting, there's new people there, many of whom don't actually belong to the OHA, but are interested in connecting with a broader oral history community. So we serve that function as well. Third, and I think this is what we would like to do more of, but we in general should serve, and the Google group that Lisa just put in there is definitely a step in this direction, for us to serve as a platform for discussion of Indigenous methods, and certain aspects of Indigenous oral history. Which really, to be honest, like that was the reason that I joined. Well, yeah, let me not get too caught up in my own story. We do that. And then fourth, very important, we provide what could be called like a gut check, sensitivity, sort of, dare I say, sort of smell test for like anything that has to do with the organization engaging Indigenous people or speaking on behalf of Indigenous issues. So this means like the land acknowledgement for the conference, should get run by us. The I think it's written into like the Indigenous research I forget the title, Indigenous Initiative Research Fellowship. I can't remember if all of or at least half of the selection committee needs to be comprised of Indigenous caucus members. Um, there's a special issue on the OHR coming out on Indigenous issues. Like theoretically, we should be anytime the organization is doing sort of Indigenous stuff, the caucus should serve as a place to sort of bounce those ideas off of and make sure, again, that sensitivities are respected, etc. So again, those are our kind of four functions: a safe space, the pathway into the org for non-members who could otherwise belong to the caucus, or be at home in the caucus, the platform for discussion of methods, particularly related to what the caucus is about, and then this kind of sensitivity check. And again, right now we're in a state of flux in terms of organizing, because it's just really hard to get like meetings scheduled, like what's the right cadence for meetings, what sorts of meetings should be closed to either only Indigenous people or only OHA members who are also Indigenous, what kinds of meetings should be open, like if they're just about like a methodological question, we would love to have more kinds of open meetings. So I think that that's where we're sort of in a state of flux right now, is just trying to figure out like what's the right cadence, and sort of spread of different types of meetings. Along with the fact that, yeah, like it's hard to, this thing doesn't happen unless the co-chairs are really leading it. And that, just speaking for myself, like has been hard to do. But again, I definitely think the existence of the caucus is a really important thing. And so I think at least being able to offer the space for those who would need it, or who would find a home in it, I think is really important. Lisa, please pick up after me.
So adorable. All right. Hi, everybody. Halito, Jim. My name is Lisa Lynn Brooks. I am coming to you from New Jersey. It's a beautiful day. I do want to just let you know that OHA has become my home because I have been a member of many, many, many professional organizations over my life, and I've never felt as home anywhere as much as I have here. And when I walked into the Indigenous Caucus meeting, and I met Farina and Winona and everybody sitting together, I realized like this is a place where, it's fertile soil, right? And I hope that everybody finds a place where you find that to be true. And there's a lot of things like Benji mentioned that we are navigating and trying to decide, but the heart of everything is how do we serve Indigenous oral historians and get them what they need? And that is such a big bag, which means we flow in and out of conversations with the larger, OHA system. And so it's always, like Benji said, it's in flux, but it's kind of interesting and beautiful at what we do. And together, that's really cool because we have conversations, not action, because we're a small group of people that, like Benji said, are in flux, but we have conversations that are so inspiring. And one of those I wanted to tell you about. At the annual meeting, it's typical that people will try to get in touch with Indigenous communities nearby and work towards making our annual meeting, in line with in conversation with Indigenous communities that are local. But we in our caucus talked about moving beyond that. Not that we're there. This is just one of the exciting things that happen. We talk about like creating energy and pulling community into, right, OHA, and really making sure that people and community members that don't have that scholarship network really feel comfortable coming in, or maybe we can do things as the Indigenous Caucus that makes those connections because this is a small world and we're all really connected. And so to really pull on those threads and make sure that we are connected with each other. We have people that'll come on one time and say, I need help with this. Does anybody have any research knowledge about this? We have people that don't want long term. They just want to know we're here. And it's hard because you want an active membership to participate, but we acknowledge that we have to maintain that stability and resource for people. And I think that's a lot of really interesting things. Community looks a lot of different ways, but in the end, we do find like we have a Rolodex of people, that have interests and skill levels that we can pull from. So we have a lot of desires and goals for ourselves, but hopefully that conversation, us, spending some time on this, help that this is all fertile ground for all of us. So thanks for letting us share. Oh, and donate. If you want us to do more stuff, you could also donate. Did I mention that? Yes. Yes.
The
Money
Indigenous
helps.
Research Fund. That's right. You can
Uh-huh.
donate to the Indigenous Research Fund. So this will be our
Yes.
second year being able to provide funding for an Indigenous research project, which is really exciting. But yeah, it gets better with more money. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Benji. All right, Troy, your turn. Campus Caucus.
Hi. Sarah wanted me to say first, I am not driving the car. So I am in the passenger seat on my way up north, cabin camping in some refurbished CCC cabins. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Aubrey, Benji, Lisa, for those thoughtful words about our caucuses. We are the youngest of the three caucuses. We are less than 6 months old. In our infancy at the campus oral history. Sorry, I'm helping my wife change lanes. We are the campus oral history caucus. We talked about whether we would call ourselves campus leaders, and we decided on just the generic campus because we wanted to be as inclusive as possible to anyone who is on campus doing oral history work, whether you're like me, leading an oral history program, whether you're in an archive and do oral history, Aubrey, or whether you teach oral history on campus. We wanted to be open to anyone. So really the only prerequisite is you have to be on or working on a campus. So we formed at the start of this year, but it's really something that a lot of this was me, but there were others involved. Looking for a space. In the last couple of years I was on executive council, people would come up that were on campuses and ask, is there a space within OHA for those of us who are doing work on campus to meet and discuss? And there wasn't. But fortunately for us, when the caucus system was created by OHA, it gives us a space to do that. So once I became immediate past president, the first thing I did is just sent out some feelers to those people who had reached out to me in the past, some people I knew, to get the critical mass that we needed to be able to have enough people to then petition council to grant us caucus status. So we have two co-chairs, myself and Aaron McCarthy, who is at Columbia College in Chicago. We meet every month. We decided right off the bat we would have monthly meetings, the second Monday in each month. So we'll meet again this coming Monday. Aaron and I decided on a structure where we would have people volunteer to talk about sort of who they are, what they do on campus. We actually created a list of 12 questions with which they could choose to answer. A few, one, many. So we've been giving, one or two people have been giving presentations about their work every month. Last month we did an open forum on pedagogy. So we actually had people talk about their teaching and some of the successes and struggles that they've had with that. We have a Google group. Right now it's really just me saying, hey, the meeting's coming up. Here's the agenda. Hey, here's the notes from last month's meeting. We have had we have had a little bit of traction, but it is a place where as we grow, we hope will be a place where instead of at the monthly meeting, if somebody has a burning question, they can drop it in the group email or the group listserv and see what comes. As Benji said, the campus caucus is also an affinity space. Benjer's on my mind. Affinity space where people can come and talk about, again, their successes and struggles in a space where, you know, they're not talking to their colleagues or their deans, or they can talk freely without fear of any possible repercussion. For that reason, we actually don't record our sessions. We do keep the chat, and we put the chat in the Google Drive, the Campus Oral History Caucus Google Drive. And then either Aaron or I switch, whether we're taking notes or facilitating, and we will send out a notes document at the end of each meeting. There are about 30 of us, I think, now. So we've actually grown pretty quick, pretty fast, from almost, I'd say at least 15, 20 states, a couple Canadians. So we are growing. It's been great so far. Aaron and I will step off as co-chairs. We purposefully put ourselves on for just 1 year. And as I've told Sarah, President Milligan, I intend not to chair nor facilitate an oral history meeting next year. I feel like I've earned that right. So I will be stepping down as co-chair. We are going to meet. We, like Aubrey, we submitted a space request for Portland. We are going to meet in person and have a space. We thought about meeting informally, but having a formal space we thought might bring in more people who are interested but not yet members to hear about what we do and network a little bit. If you couldn't tell, I have no formal notes. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I know that was far less than 10 minutes, but I think that's a nice overview of the youngest caucus in the OHA. So thank you, Sarah, for bringing us all together too, and I will kick it back to you.
Thanks to past President Reeves. I forgot to mention that in his introduction on all the other things, partly because, as he said, he wears a lot of different hats, and you get like 1 year off, and then we're going to knock on your door. So better start counting the second it starts. All right. I am grateful for all the leadership that you see here, because as was mentioned more than once, really, it does take work just to even keep conversations moving and keep things visible. And so that's one of the reasons why, in order to start a caucus and to be able to continue with caucuses, you have to at least have a chair or co-chairs listed as points of contact for these groups. As you all think about your questions, I'm going to just sort of quickly say that in order to create a caucus, it's as easy as just a petition, like a not really complicated petition can be made to council. You just need at least 10 members in good standing from the Oral History Association as sign-ons, and you just need to include a succinct description of the defining composition of the caucus. And that goes to council, and that can be sent directly to the Oral History Association email address, which I'm putting here, and that comes to the council at their next meeting. So really, it just, if at least 10 people get together and say we should have we should have a reason that we meet regularly and develop a group and make space for groups that talk about this one thing that we have in common, then this is how you get started with that. I do want to open up for questions though, either chat or you can unmute and ask questions. And you may not have any because
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Diane Kolis-Wysocki. I'm Professor Emeriti from University of Nebraska at Kearney. And I'm still researching. I've been a member of this group for years, but I have not come to anything. But I am signed up for Portland, which my son told me was a really dirty place. So I don't know anything about it. I'll tell him no. So I do a lot of autoethnography work. So they're doing lawn work outside. So I do a lot of autoethnography work. And let me switch this, close the window, hold on. The last article I wrote was on helping my mom die. And I actually am not clear the difference between autoethnography and oral history. But the reason I'm involved here is because when I cleaned out my parents' house, I found over 400 letters and photos from my dad when he was in Da Nang, Vietnam from 1970 to 71. And it's like everything is in real time. He wrote to my mother once and twice a day. So there's a massive amount of information. I am not a historian. And I didn't even know it was a war zone when I was younger. I mean, I just thought he was on a base. And now it was called, it was being bombed all the time. So I would like to connect with people who have an interest in this. And that's my reason for coming. And because my sociology conferences don't provide this.
Okay.
So I'm hoping you guys are broad enough to maybe you can connect me with somebody that does this kind of history.
Yeah, are you speaking specifically like Vietnam history or military or archives more
Yeah,
dry?
I'm kind of open to it because as soon as I get done with this book, I'll donate
Yeah.
everything. I want it out of my house so my kids don't throw it out when they come through
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, there's a lot of different organizations and institutions that might be interesting, but there's also this might be a question too, with the Archives Caucus, maybe even indirectly, of like sort of asking questions or providing resources. Troy has something in the chat. Okay. Is having some connectivity issues. But I think if you come to the Oral History Association, there's things that's going to be on the program that will show you that are military history oriented or people working in those spaces. So you should be able to connect with sort of a broad swath of people who are working in public facing institutions that you might connect with for sure. So, and if
Okay.
you, yeah, so we look forward to
Well,
seeing
I'm
you.
excited to go because, I can
Good.
do what I want now.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
Yeah.
and, I did sex research and my entire career, and being in Nebraska was really difficult. Never want to be back there. Somebody
Cool.
just sent me something. They got rid of sex education because it talked about gayness and porn.
Yeah. Well, there's people that are going to be talking about all sorts of things for sure. So I think you're going to make a lot of good connections at this upcoming meeting on all those things. So I would not be surprised.
Okay.
Thanks for that question. Anyone else have caucus questions about thinking about forming one, looking for people that might want to join up on that? Questions about the groups that we already have existing?
I want to, oh,
Go ahead, Nat.
oh, okay. Hi, I'm Nat DeFrank. I run the Philadelphia Trans-Oral History Project out of the University of Pennsylvania. And we're dealing with a lot of like unsustainable funding and issues with like possibly having to move into an independent collective. And I know that's something that a lot of like trans and queer archives have been navigating. And I think particularly in the South have been navigating it in a quicker timeline than the Northeast, of like how to like combine efforts together and also yeah. So I guess I don't necessarily have a clear question of this, but I put in like a thing to try to have like a networking event for trans oral historians to see like maybe like how many people are part of the Oral History Association in order to hopefully maybe then I'm thinking if like there's enough people could be a caucus is that would be like a good step in order to like establish that. I guess is my question. Yeah.
Yeah, so you put in as a request for an event, like just space for an event for gathering that will be visible in the program.
Yeah, like a networking event is what I applied for.
I think that's a good way to be visible to try and connect with other people. I also think you'll see on the program, the preliminary program should be out pretty soon, but I think that you'll be able to see quite a few sessions or presenters or presentations or roundtables or discussion groups that are listed on the program that definitely work on this topic. And so even just making sure that you're kind of connecting with those folks individually and having this conversation about what it would look like to start a caucus is also a good way, and encouraging them to come, and meet up while you're there and start these conversations. I think all those things together would work.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Can you open it up to allies as well?
I mean, that would be a conversation like, well, when we have a group together, I do think that there are just like specific things that trans oral historians are
Right.
navigating, like creating our methodology for like our archives and things like that are distinct. And so I feel like there's a lot more things out about like like oral history generally, but I think right now, especially in the political climate, like trans oral historians are experiencing something that is, of course, is interlinked with queer, which maybe it becomes like a queer and trans oral historian caucus or something like that. But yeah, that would be a decision down the line. But yeah.
Good question. All right. I had the question about independent practitioners, and I added something, but I'll say this as well. So we don't have a formal caucus for independent practitioners within the community, within the Oral History. We have like It is a very large group of independent. Can you group independents? There's a large number of independent practitioners that come to the Oral History Association and just in general, and have come in and out of doing work that is, sort of public facing or community building at different times. No one has decided at this point yet to start a caucus for independent practitioners, but I think that the amount of people and probably the interest would be there. I did put a link to this network of people, the Oral History Worker Collective, which is sort of a newer, it's outside the Oral History Association, but we definitely are in conversation with a lot of folks. There's a lot of members of Oral History Association that are part of this collective conversation. So it's kind of different than what a caucus would be, but also a good place to just have on your radar if you're if you're working independently. So I'd put a link there in case that interests you. They have, some different meetups and conversations too. But we would love to see it if anyone wants to take the initiative to put together the starting framework. Any other questions? I think you all are on the right track. Just finding your people, and especially if you're willing to, sort of maybe chair or co-chair the first year, just to kind of get some of the organizational structure together on how and when and who's scheduling events. I think that's really how this can get off the ground.
Yeah, I would just say to follow up on that, like what I've learned in the last however long it's been, like 9 months since becoming co-chair, is that like just like whatever space you're able to provide, like the more the caucus will do, like it is sort of like if you build it, they will probably come, and if you don't build it, they definitely won't, type of thing. And again, like caucuses are not task forces, they're not official committees, right? Like they don't have formal charges. So that lack of formalization can cut either way. Like it gives you a lot of freedom and it gives you a lot of freedom, like to not do anything. And so if you want to get a caucus going and you just want to keep staying in people's inboxes and be like, there's a meeting this week, there's a meeting this week, I'm opening the Zoom room, come if you can, we're doing this, I'm doing, whatever. Uh, I think that's like the point of it being a caucus, and again, not a committee or a task force or something more formal.
Yep. Okay. Maria Jose Cordero.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to meet you guys. It's incredible the work all you are doing. I am a political scientist from Guatemala, and I'm doing oral history in the conflict arm here in Guatemala. And I'm also a women's studies graduate student in University of Florida. So I was wondering, is there any space like feminist studies within the organization, or even Latin American studies, or a group of oral historians in that areas?
I feel like a broken record because I'm gonna say yes. There's work being done. There's people doing this work. There's people that definitely are going to present about all these things, and I think that there's room and interest if it just kind of got started to keep conversations going. We actually had a petition for a caucus a couple of years ago for a Latinx, I think is actually how they framed it too, caucus, and it had the starting group, but just didn't have the momentum to really get off the ground. So I know that there's volume there too. Again, it just takes someone that has the time and the structure to just sort of put that first, not just the petition, but then to like schedule the first meeting and send information out, like communicating through the members network that how people would sign up to get information. I mean, it can be that simple. So I think either one of those, you're going to see a lot of people who have those backgrounds and have that interest and have that swell. So it's definitely possible. And I know not everybody is able to come to the oral history annual meeting. Like, I'm completely aware of that. It's just one of those places where the vast majority of people sort of are able to make that initial connection there. And then, you know, if things grow or things build, especially with the caucus, it's way for people to be involved in those communications in those communities, even if they don't come to every single year for the meeting, or if, you know, it can be really valuable on multiple fronts too.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other burning questions?
I'll just say, like, I'm pretty sure like the 3 caucuses represented here are the 3 caucuses that exist. Like any other caucus you're interested in does not yet exist. So make it.
Thanks, Benji. That is important to actually say. Yes. Yes. And I did put in the chat that the URL for the caucus information too. So we have an FAQ that actually Troy developed this last year, based on just the fact that we get a lot of questions because it's so new. And then descriptions of the different caucuses that are existing, and then information on how to connect with those communities to get involved. So hopefully you all can get all that information pretty easily through the Oral History Association website. All right. Well, we have a few minutes early. And so unless anyone else has any other questions, I think we can go ahead and end the recording for sure, Haley. And then give you all a little bit extra time.